All right, let's jump right into one of the most incredible stories ever told. A story of unbelievable strength, of heartbreaking betrayal, and ultimately redemption. We're talking, of course, about Samson. We've all heard the name, but today we're going to dig into the real secret behind his legendary power. When you hear the name Samson, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For most of us, it's his long hair, right? But what if I told you that the hair was just a symbol, a clue pointing to something much, much bigger? The real question we're tackling today is what truly fueled the strongest man who ever lived. Was it just a haircut, or was there something else going on entirely?
So to really get Samson, you have to understand the world he was born into. It was a tough time. The Israelites had turned away from their God, Jehovah, and because of that, they were living under the oppressive rule of their enemies, the Philistines. They desperately needed a hero, a champion to fight for them.
And that's when something amazing happens. An angel shows up, appearing to a man and his wife who, by the way, couldn't have children. The angel gives them this unbelievable message. You're going to have a son. And this isn't just going to be any kid. He is the one who will begin to save Israel from the Philistines.
But there was a catch, a big one. This divine promise came with a very specific condition. Their son, Samson, was to be a Nazirite from the moment he was born. Now, this was a sacred vow, a sign that he was completely dedicated to God. And the most visible, most famous sign of that vow, his hair was never, ever supposed to be cut. This detail is absolutely central to the whole story. So Samson grows up with this divine purpose hanging over him, and it's pretty clear, pretty fast, that he is no ordinary man. But his strength wasn't like a switch that was always on. The accounts say his power would just flare up whenever Jehovah's spirit became operative. Let's take a look at what that power was capable of. Get this, on his way to meet the woman he was going to marry, a young lion jumps out at him. Samson has no weapons, nothing, and he just tears it apart with his bare hands. I mean, can you imagine? This was the first real hint of the kind of force he was dealing with. But the scale of his power was just mind-boggling. At one point, he gets betrayed and handed over to the Philistines. They tie him up with new ropes, but when he flexes, the ropes snap off him like they're nothing. He looks around, grabs the first thing he sees, the jawbone of a donkey, and takes down 1,000 enemy soldiers. One man against 1,000. It's unbelievable. And if that wasn't enough, check out this act of pure defiance. He's trapped in the enemy city of Gaza. Instead of trying to sneak out, he waits till midnight, walks up to the massive city gate, rips the entire thing, posts, bar, and all, right out of the wall, and then carries it on his shoulders to the top of a mountain miles away, just to make a point. But, every great hero seems to have a weakness, a fatal flaw. And for Samson, that weakness was his love for a woman named Delilah. This is where the story takes a turn, and his devotion faces its ultimate test. The Philistine rulers, they're not dumb. They see an opening. They go to Delilah and they make her an offer she can't refuse. An absolute fortune in silver if she can just find out the secret to Samson's crazy strength. They're desperate to capture him, and Delilah, tempted by all that cash, agrees to betray him. Okay, this right here is the absolute key to the entire story. Pay attention. The Philistines, and even Delilah, they thought the secret was physical. They thought the power was in the hair. But they missed the whole point. The hair wasn't the source of the power, it was the symbol of it. The real source was his special relationship with God as a Nazirite. As long as he honored that vow, the strength was his. And by failing to protect that symbol, Samson was about to break the one thing that truly mattered, his connection to the source of his strength. This is the moment where everything starts to go wrong, big time. Delilah was absolutely relentless. Day in and day out, she begged and pleaded and pestered him. 3 times he gave her a fake answer, and 3 times the Philistines burst in, only to be thrown off easily. But she just kept at it, nagging him until he was just worn out. He finally caved. He told her everything, the whole story about the Nazirite vow, and how if his hair was cut, his strength would be gone. He gave away the sacred secret. With the secret finally in her hands, Delilah lulled him to sleep and called in a man to shave off his 7 braids. And then came that famous shout, the one she'd cried out 3 times before. Only this time, it was for real. Samson woke up, thinking he'd just shake them off like all the other times. But this time was different.
When the hair was cut, the vow was broken. He had betrayed his special relationship with God, and just like that, the connection to his power was severed. The spirit of Jehovah was gone. He was no longer a champion, he was just a man. The fallout was immediate and horrifying. The strongest man in the world was suddenly helpless. The Philistines captured him, they gouged out his eyes, and they bound him in copper chains. The hero of Israel became a slave, forced to do the humiliating work of grinding grain in a prison. It's a devastating fall from grace.
But the story doesn't end there in that dark prison. There is one final explosive act left, a moment of redemption that would fulfill Samson's destiny in a way nobody could have possibly seen coming. So the Philistines decide to throw a massive party to celebrate their victory over Samson. They gather in the temple of their god, Dagon, thousands of them, including all of their leaders. And to entertain the crowd, they bring out the blind Samson to be the main event, a trophy to be laughed at and mocked. In that moment of complete humiliation, Samson prayed. He asked the boy leading him to let him feel the two main pillars holding up the entire temple. And then he called out to God, not to save his life, but for one last surge of that incredible strength. And his prayer was answered. As his hair had slowly started to grow back in prison, so had his repentance. He braced himself between the pillars, and with one final, mighty push, he brought the whole building down. The temple collapsed, killing everyone inside, more than 3,000 Philistines, including their entire leadership. He had killed more of his enemies in his death than he had in his entire life, fulfilling his mission at the very end. So, Samson's story leaves us with this really powerful question to think about. It seems to teach us that true strength isn't just some external gift you're given, whether it's physical power or some other talent. It's really about the relationship, the devotion, the commitment that fuels and sustains that gift. It makes you wonder, what happens when we forget the real source of our own strengths? It's definitely something to think about.